Ask our Lord Most High to send copious and eternal and unlimited blessings and salutations upon our beloved Prophet, Sayyidina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. And we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we hold this class, and we pay our respects to the elders, past and present. So we continue, inshallah on the door of fortitude, which is in reality, that's the door to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in its different shapes and its different manifestations and its different realities and its different latent and patent states. And the person who embodies that quality in their life will be successful in any aspect, whichever aspect of their life they decide to pursue. Of course, our focus in this instance is the dini aspect, the aspect of a person connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by travelling the path showed to us by the Prophet of Allah ﷺ, and then emulated by the predecessors of the Prophet of Allah, the successors of the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba in the first instance, and the Tabi'een, and the righteous Imam, the Imams after that, and the awliya and the Salihin that come after them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has really made us, as the Prophet of Allah ﷺ mentioned a couple of weeks ago, that a sabr, that's where the khair is, that's where the benefit is in a person persevering. And why do we say that was the case?
Is it because it creates a type of vigilance, like the believer, so he's like constant with his state?
Certainly, that's certainly what it would be. We referred to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that time. We said, what? Ajaban lahu, al-amr al-mu'min. That's the state of the believer. The believer, when they're in that state, of course they're going to be steadfast. If when saying that something good happens, shakar. They remember Allah, say thanks. They're grateful to Allah. And ad-darra, sabr. Saying that they don't really like, they have patience, they have fortitude, they persevere. And only that only belongs to the believer. So that state of connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in reality is based on sabr. If you really want to look at the essence of what it is. It's based on that a person being steadfast in the Amal al-Nabawiyya and what the Prophet of Allah did. So he says, قال المؤلف رحمه الله رضي الله عنه وعنكم نفعنا به وبكم يبعث على هذا الصبر ذكر ما وعد الله على فعل الطاعات من الثواب عاجلا وآجلا ومن لزم الصبر على هذا الوجه وصل إلى مقام القرب وهناك يجد في الطاعات من الحلاوة واللذة والأنس ما لا يوصف وينبغي لمن حصل له هذا الأمر ألا يسكن إليه دون الله. So he says that on the bottom of page 111, the last line there on the book with the gentleman on the cover. So this kind of fortitude is helped by remembering God's promised rewards, both immediate and to come, for obedience. So remembering God's promised rewards for obedience, the immediate and that to come. The man who keeps, or the person who keeps this kind of fortitude reaches the station of nearness where that individual will find indescribable sweetness, pleasure, and intimacy in acts of obedience. The one to whom this happens must not rely on it in preference to God. So the Imam, he's talking about here how one stays consistent. How does one stay consistent? What's that word called? Being consistent. The state of being consistent in any action, whether it's deen or not deen. It's called being motivated. So how does a person maintain motivation to maintain their sabr? So the Imam here says, ذكر ما وعد الله على فعل الطاعات من الثواب عاجلا وآجلا. So by a person remembering the virtues of practicing a particular deed. So the virtues, of, let's say for example, tahajjud, of waking up before fajr and praying is the best prayer after the maktubat, after the fara'id, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends to the earth, the sky of the earth, and says, what do you want? What do you need? Clothes, food, money? Some difficulty alleviated? So when a person thinks of the virtues that are attached to any deed, they'll be motivated to perform that deed. And then he says, ajilan wa ajilan. So the instant rewards, the gratification of whoever, for example, lowers their gaze, they'll taste the sweetness of Iman. The Prophet of Allah said, that's the instant reward. And the reward of the hereafter, when we go to face Allah Azza wa Jal, in the grave, when we face Allah, the people who are, for example, shaded under the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment, Imamun Adil, a righteous leader, or a just, more correctly, leader. So the impetus to perform good deeds is maintained by considering and thinking and pondering about the rewards of performing a positive, a righteous action in this world, like we said, the sweetness of Iman, or in the next world, being shaded under the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or the person who leaves lying, even if he's only or she's only joking, I'm the guarantor for the house of that person in the middle of Jannah. So the reason why we leave it, we're seeking something better. We're seeking something better. Whoever drinks alcohol in this life, they won't drink alcohol in the next life. They won't drink the khamr of Jannah, which is probably more relevant to the next part, but you get the picture. وَمَنْ لَزِمَ الصَّبْرَ. So the person who is consistent in their patience, in their perseverance, the fortitude reaches the station of nearness, where that person will find indescribable sweetness, pleasure, and intimacy. So in a sense, we go back to the emotional things we were talking about in the last few weeks, and we were considering in the last few classes. Come across. So we're talking about those. We're talking about those things. And we're saying that what are we really looking for, particularly in the West, when we've got alhamdulillah our basic necessities covered for. We're looking for that emotional peace. We're looking just to say, oh, okay, all right, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling content. I'm not feeling perturbed or disturbed or upset or anxious, depressed. So what's the Imam telling us? The person they'll find halawa, sweetness, ladha. And what he uses for ladha, he says pleasure. He says ladha is it's kind of related to sweetness. Halawa is sweetness, and ladha is it's flavoursome. In other words, it's intoxicating, for use of a better phrase. The person becomes overwhelmed, in a sense, by the emotional attachment they have to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through worship. And that's why at the end he says that a person shouldn't be attached to that emotion even. That a person's attachment should be only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But so great is that feeling that the individual gets when they worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly from their heart, with presence of heart and mind, with the right intention in the right manner, and wanting to do it, not feeling that they have to do it, and being consistent on that over a period of time. That so great is that sweetness, that intoxication, if you like, that sometimes people, they focus on that feeling rather than focusing on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in another sense, they're lost, even though they're on the path to Allah. They're not really found because their intentions are wayward now. They're doing it for that feeling. They're doing it to feel something, where in actual fact an individual should be doing it to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to connect to Allah Azza wa Jal. So in the second, he says, that's the first type of ibadah, sabr. Al-sabr ala ta'ah. Anyone have a question? That's the first type. So the fortitude, or that's more perseverance on the righteous deeds, or the prophetic deeds, if you like. It says, وَثَانِيهَا الصَّبْرُ عَنِ الْمَعَاصِي وَيَحْصُلُ ظَاهِرًا بِاجْتِنَابِهَا وَالْبُعْدُ عَنْ مَظَانِّهَا وباطنا بترك تحدث النفس بها وميلها إليها لأن أول الذنوب خطرة. So secondly, patient endurance in renouncing sins. This is realized outwardly by avoiding them and by keeping away from the places where they might be committed, and by preventing the soul from discoursing upon them and from inclining to them. For the very beginning of sin is a thought. So now the Imam moves on to the second part, so to speak, of sabr, the second part of perseverance, the second part of having fortitude. And that is ijtinab al-ma'asi, to repel away from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made disobedience. So the first part is to be patient and persevere and have fortitude on obedience, things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes. The second part is to be patient from disobedience, or persevere in being away from disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how does one attain it? This is realized outwardly by avoiding sins. Duh, right? Isn't that the case? That if you don't want to sin, you want to have patience on it, then don't do it. Stay away from it. And look, always we're looking for a magic pill, because that's how we're raised. Flick the switches, everything's quick. Flick it, push it, press it, send it, take it. Habibi, there's no magic pill. When are we going to rope in the horse? The horse, the soul, the beast inside. When are we going to rope it in? When are we going to say, right, I'm taking on my ego? When am I going to make that commitment? Because I'm always looking for someone else. When this happens, when I get married, when I get divorced, when I have kids, when I get a second wife, when I go to Hajj, when I make my $1 million, when I get a job, when I finish uni, when I do whatever it is that I do, then that's what I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that then. That's it. I'm going to take on my nafs. I'm going to take on my soul. I'm going to take on my ego. Because now I'm ready. But until then, I'm going to indulge my ego. Whatever my ego wants to do, whatever my ego wants me to do, however my ego wants me to act, whatever comes along that just I feel like doing, I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to go and complain. And say, I could have done that. I should have done that. I would have done that. Why didn't I do that? What's to it? What's not to it? Why did I do it? How should I do it? Ask someone else. It's that person's fault. If that hadn't happened to me, if that had happened to me. And we live our whole lives like that. Which is the exact opposite of what? Thank you very much. It's the exact opposite of sabr. It's the exact opposite of sabr. And unfortunately, that's the state we find ourselves in consistently. Making excuses. There's no excuse. The excuse is I'm weak. The excuse is I'm not committed enough. The excuse is I'm not motivated enough. The excuse is I don't really want it. The excuse is my belief, my iman, my yaqeen, my conviction is wavering. The excuse is that I really want to do these things. I really want to go and drink alcohol. I really want to go and smoke dope. I really want to go and fornicate with this individual. I really want to go and steal this thing. I really want to go and backbite about this person. I really want to do it. But I can't admit that I can't admit that I'm bad in that sense. I'm bad. So I'm not inherently bad, but I'm being bad and I want to be bad. Because why? Because my ego wants it. And I haven't taken the commitment between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, me and myself, to say no. Say no, that's it, doesn't work. And then I may have, but what? There's no conviction in it. No sabr, so to speak. And it's just flip-flopping one day like that, one day like this, one day like that, one day like this, one day like this, one day like that. Until when? Until when is that going to keep occurring? When am I going to say to myself, firstly to Allah, and then to myself, when am I going to make that commitment? When am I going to take that jump? So, he says that, firstly, stay away from it. Stay away from the ma'asi. Stay away from ma'asiyatullah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَالْبُعْدُ عَنْ مَظَانِّهَا. And then this is another one. This is one that we get to all the time. It says, firstly, stay away from sins, sinful things. Stay away from it. Secondly, keeping away from the places where they might be committed. And by preventing from there you go. Oh, that doesn't come across here. اجتناب البعد عن مظانها يحصل ظاهرا باجتنابها. He's added, which is probably a good place. He's added a good thing the mutarjim, the translator, said this is realized outwardly by avoiding them, we said that, and keeping away from the places where they might be committed. If you're, someone's alcoholic, or they were alcoholic and they're on the deen now, stay away from pubs. Or if you have an inclination to drink alcohol, stay away from those things. Inclination even to the extent that there was one time we went to it was in Saudi Arabia, we were in Hajj, I think, and they had that non-alcoholic beer. Like it's beer, but it's got no alcohol in it. And then one of the blokes, he drank it and he goes, it tastes exactly like beer. I said, yeah, so what? It's non-alcoholic. And then after his face changed, his whole demeanour changed. I wonder what's the matter with this guy. Then after he goes, I used to be an alcoholic after a little while. I said, then don't drink it. Whatever you do, stay away from non-alcoholic beer, because eventually the taste is there. That connection to that thing is there. So I drank it, I found it pretty disgusting. And I don't have those issues, alhamdulillah, to blame me. But you've got an issue, you're once upon a time you're a kleptomaniac, stay away from places where it's easy to steal things. You have some sort of you used to be a person that used to smoke cigarettes and you quit. Don't hang around with people that smoke cigarettes, unless you've got the internal strength and fortitude, sabr, to stay away from those things. Otherwise, stay away from those places. Right? That's that, which was good. This is added in by the translator, which I think is, mashallah, very poignant and relevant. And he says, by preventing the soul from discoursing upon them, he's translated differently. So he says, وَالْبُعْدُ عَنْ مَظَانِّهَا. So, look, it could be taken that way. It could be taken that way, but it's stay away from the doubt about it. Stay away from that question of should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I. Like the food, you go somewhere.
Like grey areas.
The grey, maybe, yeah. But for yourself, so you know that you like whatever, triple pepperoni pizza, whatever it is, right? And you know that place you're not sure about the pepperoni there. Is it halal, is it not halal, what's the story? And what happens, the doubt's created. Stay away, don't go there, don't eat that food that could be, maybe isn't, whatever the story is, halal, not halal. Or doubtful, or you're not sure about it, or you're not 100% certain about the origin of that food. Stay away, because it's going to break your sabr, it's going to break your certainty, it's going to break your fortitude, it's going to break that capacity to stay away from it. And then he says, and preventing the soul from discoursing upon them and from inclining to them. For the very beginning of a sin is a thought. وترك تحدث النفس بها والميل إليها لأن أول الذنب خطر. He says that, then the next part is, I wish I could go and drink that. I wish, if I was a Muslim, if it wasn't haram, I would go there and I would do that thing. I would taste that, I would eat that, I would stay with that, I would take that, I would use that, I would feel that. What's the point of doing that? Let's just beat your head on the wall, better for you. Doesn't make any sense in any regard. I'm not talking in a dini regard. Oh, you're right, you want to be a whatever, Hollywood actress. It's not, and if you're not taking the steps, it's not going to happen, but you're dreaming about it every day. Wow, it'd be so great to have a star on the Hollywood Boulevard. It'd be so in a sense, that's someone's not 100% stable. Thinking about something that is out of reach. It's improbable, maybe even impossible that's going to be likely. Or becoming a billionaire. Or whatever things that people think about doing or whatever it might be. Okay? So, how about the believer where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bi'ilmihi al-azali, with his knowledge that has no beginning, decreed for humankind that this thing is haram. Why would I think about something like that? Why would I daydream about something like that? Why would a sane individual think about, if only this and if only that? And he says, because the initiation of sin is through a thought. And that should remind us of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam. What happened? The shaitan came and came and came. This wasn't just one occasion. Kept on playing the tree. And that's his job, Iblis, shaitan. Create doubt. That's all he has to do, is create doubt. Once doubt's there, basically it's all patient perseverance and strong faith and conviction in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Imam's saying, the more you think about the thing, I want to, how come I can't? Unfortunately, I'm sorry to the sisters, the sisters complain that they can't go and do what the brothers are doing. I want to go overseas and do this. How come they can have 4 husbands or whatever, 4 wives, and I can't have 4? How come? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? That has led to, when a'udhu billah, that men becoming women and women becoming men. Because of thinking about what someone else has got. I don't have that thing. I don't have that thing. Alright? I don't mean that metaphorically. Okay? I want to be like that. I don't want to be like this. I. And what it lead to? Self-destruction. And even the people face, plastic surgery and that, Ken and Barbie. The people, they want to become like the Barbie doll. And after a while, they said, what am I doing? And the guy wanted to become like a cat. He died of complications. He made his face like a cat with fangs, and he died of complications. And then they do the tattoo, then they regret having done the tattoo. It's cool, have tattoo, or cool where? And back in the day, only bikies had tattoos. When I was young, only bikies had tattoos. Now, bankers have tattoos. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's nuts. Right? So, we've got to consider those things. We've got to ponder over those things. We've got to understand what it is that we want. And that goes back to the commitment that we've made, firstly with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to fight our own souls. We want to fight. We're good at fighting everybody else because, we've got big mouths and we can, do things on Facebooks and whatever else, and we can complain to everybody, and we can ponder things in our own mind and, be whoever we want to be in our own minds. But if we're not ready to go against that, the evil within, how are we going to fight the evil that's outside? It's not going to happen. And then we go, why are the Muslims the way they are? It must be America's fault. It must be the Zionists' fault. It must be the Illuminati's fault. It must be the other groups that are there, whatever, Masons. What are you talking about? We've got internal issues. We've got problems from within. I have problems from within. Not anyone else. I'm the one with the problems. I got the issues. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows me my issues, that's the biggest karama after istiqamah. So the biggest grace Allah could grace someone is steadfastness, which is what? Sabr. That's number one. That's number one on good things. And then the rest of the things we're going to talk about. The sabr on obedience, and in other words, the steadfastness or the fortitude on doing things that are obedience, and the strength and the perseverance, more correctly, forbearance, if you like, the forbearance to stay away from the disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's istiqamah. And then after that, the best grace that Allah can give a person is to show them their sins. Yet what are we running away from in reality? Running away from our sins. Like if you go, anyone who's involved in psychology and whatever it might be, everyone's hang-ups are from what? From not being able to look at their own problems. All our hang-ups, and we all got some sort of issue somewhere, somehow. All our hang-ups that we have is because we've got regressed emotion, regressed thoughts about, when we were 5 or when we were 7 or when we were 10 or when we were 16 or 20 or something happened to us and we couldn't deal with it. Trauma. We couldn't deal with the trauma because of whatever reason, maybe justifiably so, maybe not. And that's bring us to the point that we're at psychologically, if you like. So when Allah shows us our weaknesses, we shouldn't run away from that. We should accept that. And that's another part of forbearance, and which we'll talk about, inshallah. So it's an important facet, is not to let the mind be entertained in things that the mind should not be entertained in. The mind is not, it's called aql in Arabic, which means to be restrained. The mind is something to restrain us from disobedience of Allah Azza wa Jal. And it's also something for us to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the khitab al-Rabbani. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's speech is to the intellect. If we don't start off with the intellect, we can't go anywhere. Can't do anything. And that's what we spoke about previously, a long time ago. We said that one thought that's entertained in a human being in a human being's mind can destroy their life, which is a thought. One thought. So heaps of famous quotes have spoken about control your thoughts, control your life. Things like that, quotes like that. وأما تذكر الذنوب السالفة وأما تذكر الذنوب السالفة فإن كان يحصل به خوف أو ندم فهو حسن وإلا فتركه أحسن. And this is relevant, I would imagine. As for remembering previous sins, if this results in fear or remorse, it is good. If not, then refraining from it is better. So the Sahaba, they used to sometimes gather and they used to talk and laugh about the things they used to do, but not in a happy way. They weren't happy they did it. They're like, how stupid were we? How stupid were we that we lived our lives like that we believed in al-Lat or al-Uzza or those fake gods they had or whatever, the idols. How silly were we that we did those things? And so they were reminded themselves in that way. The worst thing ever for them would to be go back to kufr wa na'udhu billah after iman. And rather get chopped up into little pieces or horse drawn and quartered or whatever kind of punishment there was. So if it sends a person, if it results in fear or remorse, then it's good. So if you think of your sins or something reminds you of a sin that you've done, and it makes you think, yeah, I did that, I wish I didn't do that again. Ya Rab, I hope I don't do that again. Ya Rab, keep me away from that. Then it's a good thing to do. Whereas otherwise, one should refrain from doing it. If it doesn't, if we just laugh, oh yeah, they were good times, weren't they? Yeah, back in the day when we lost it, in the Jahiliyyah, some brothers they call them, the Jahiliyyah days, we did this and ha ha ha. Then one should refrain from doing it. Because why?
Yeah, glorifying it kind of.
Yeah, definitely. That's it. The glorification of sins is haram, to accept it to happen and go back to the state the Imam is talking about.
When you think about it, you're more inclined to do it.
Certainly, right? All those things. And the Imam's talking about the state. Halawa, where's the halawa? Where's the ladha? Where's the sweetness? The sweetness is going to be in the previous sins, the previous state when the person felt when they were sinning. Of course they're not going to change from a sinning state. Even though they may seem to have changed outwardly, inwardly, when they're still attached. And then we wonder why we're still the way we are. Because if we were to most of us, if we had a graph and we were to chart our progression, it'd be like this. Quickly, it goes up, and then we reach a point where, no, I'm okay now, then it's just flatlining. Been the same for 10, 15, 5, 2, 6, 5, 3 years, whatever. But originally we got into the deen, we were into it. Studying and reciting Qur'an and reading and sitting in classes and downloading and watching and hanging out with these people and dressing and changing and not eating this and eating that. And then once we felt happy with ourselves, it's all right, I'm all right now. That's it. Just straight. And then we think, how come it used to be so good when I used to worship Allah? Now, because that same impetus isn't there, which is what? If we had sabr on that, we just kept on going up. But we decided, no, I'm happy where I am. We didn't fight the evil within when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we don't work to get back there, we're going to remain as we are. وَيُبْعَثُ عَلَى هَذَا الصَّبْرِ تَرْكُ مَا تَوَعَدَ وَتَذَكُّرْ ما توعد الله به على المعاصي من العقاب عاجلا وآجلا ومن واظب على الصبر على هذا الوجه أكرمه الله بوجود الأنف من المعاصي كلها حتى يصير دخول النار أهون عليه من ارتكاب أدناها. Says, as remembering this kind of fortitude is helped by remembering God's threats of punishment in this world and the next for disobedience. The one who keeps this kind of fortitude will be honoured by God with finding all disobedience so repugnant that entering the fire, in other words hellfire, would be easier for him or her to bear than the committal of the smallest sins. Very nice, very nicely translated, mashallah. So that's what's going to happen to the person that constantly remembers wa'id. So the first one is wa'ad, the promises of Allah, the glad tidings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jannah, tajri min tahtiha al-anhar, khalidina fiha abada, kutufuha daniya. All the good things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Qur'an. And all the good things the Prophet ﷺ described to us when he went there and he saw your Jannah. And inshallah he saw my Jannah. And he saw everything that was going to happen in the Mala, and in the next life, and in this life, and until the Day of Judgment, except his own Jannah, alayhi salatu wasalam. He wasn't allowed to see that. When his time comes, he'll see it, bi'idhnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's saved for him as a treat. Right? So, those things, those affairs, those states, those conditions, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's the wa'ad. That's the glad tidings. And then, if we keep remembering those, we'll be encouraged to do good deeds. And that's the sabr ala ta'at. And the sabr an al-ma'asi is to remember when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the punishment for doing anything. What happens to the backbiter? What happens to the fornicator? What happens to the one who listens to haram music? All the, like the leads poured in their ears and all these things that when are scary. The people who masturbate when Allah won't even look at them on the Day of Judgment when subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَيَنْظُرُ إِلَيْهِمْ. All the different things that when the sins that we hear of and we know of and are common around us. Like we said, whoever drinks alcohol in this life won't drink alcohol in the next life. When subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's it. In other words, the rivers that flow, one of honey, one of milk, and one of alcohol, they won't get to drink. They won't get to have that pleasure. When subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's what keeps a person away from sins and keeps them steadfast in staying away from sins when subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the person that will reach a state where they would find sinning so repugnant that they'd rather be thrown in the hellfire. And Sayyidina Ali anhu, he said that our yaqeen was so strong, our conviction was so strong that if we were to see heaven or we were to see, it would not increase our iman one bit, and if we were to see hell, it would not increase our iman one bit. That's how Ali anhu and the Sahaba, that's how the iman was. So what we're saying is the stories of those things, of the good things, should increase our iman and get us to do more good deeds. And the stories of the negative things, of the hellfire, should create enough fear, I suppose, if you like, for us to not do sins. But for them, it wasn't like that. They had the reality. They had the reality. And so that is the reality. The reality is that a person should be more happy to be thrown into the hellfire than sin. That's the reality. And that only comes with consistency, and consistency comes with sabr. Okay, وثالثها. It says الصبر على المكاره وهي نوعان. أولا ما يحصل من الله بلا واسطة كالأمراض والآفات وذهاب الأموال وموت الأعز من الأقارب والأصحاب ويحصل باطنا بترك الجذع وهو التبرم والتضجر. That's pretty good. وظاهرا بترك الشكوى إلى الخلق ولا يناقضه وصف العلة للطبيب وفيضان العين عند المصيبة. نعم يناقضه لطم الخدود وشق الجيوب والنياحة ونحو ذلك. Says thirdly, patient endurance of unpleasant things. In other words, in particular, unpleasant things, occurrences. These are of two kinds. The first compromises those which come from God without an intermediary, as for example, illness, infirmity, loss of wealth, or the death of near relatives and friends. This kind of fortitude is realized inwardly by forsaking restlessness, which is to become annoyed and irritated, and outwardly by not complaining to any creature. This is not incompatible with describing an illness to a physician, or with one's eyes overflowing with tears at a time of loss. But it is, however, incompatible with slapping one's cheeks, rendering rending one's clothes, wailing, and such like. So the Imam here is talking about the third category of patience. The first one being sorry? Go to sleep earlier? Is that the first question?
The first of this type, or the first of the
First type of sabr. Right? Ala ta'at, which means on?
Perseverance in obedience.
Okay, persevering in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second type is what? An al-ma'asi, from sins. Perseverance from sins. And then the third category is what? Makarih, which is? Right, things that are unpleasant. And that has subcategory, or 3.1 or 3A or whatever you want to call it. So the subcategory of that is that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends without intermediaries. So basically what that is there might not be a cause for it, in other words. So it might not be something that one has done to cause a negative, a bad event, whatever, falling asleep at the wheel or whatever it might be. This is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends to the believer, as we said, to elevate, inshallah azza wa jal, the believer, to increase the believer's status. And he said the first one is that, so he talks about illness, infirmity, if something happens to a person that, is renders them kind of incapable of doing something. Loss of wealth, that happens. Sometimes, you don't get the job you wanted and you have all these bills you have to pay or whatever, you don't get the contract, or the person that owes you money because you did the work for him that doesn't want to pay you. وَمَوْتِ الْأَعِزَّةِ, the death of those that are near to someone, or A'izza means they're beloved. The death of those who are beloved to a person, that's from family members and friends, it's always a difficult thing. So these things come from Allah. These things come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a test, but it's a test that a believer is going to pass. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants the believer to pass, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends them those tests to elevate the believer's status. And that elevation could be just mahdi, in other words, purely from Allah, or that elevation could be in the lesson or the wisdom that one learns from those events, those occurrences that one may not like. And it may be, someone getting divorced, or it may be when Allah azza wa jal, any of those things, failing an exam, it might be, losing something or having it stolen, things like that. Those types of things that occur, forgetting your password for whatever it might be, that happens pretty regularly. So it might be just one of those things. Okay? And he says, وَيَحْصُلْ بَاطِنًا بِتَرْكِ الْجَذَعِ أو الجزع وهو التبرم والتضجر. So he says that, how does a person get away from these states? How does a person get away from the state when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of losing the fortitude when an occurrence happens, losing their way, so to speak, losing their patience when these things, that's probably closer to patience, I'd imagine, the meaning of the word. He says by inwardly forsaking, it's realized, this kind of fortitude is realized by inwardly forsaking restlessness. So in other words, not constantly having one's mind flipping to different things all the time. And another one he says is tabarrum. He says, which is to become annoyed and irritated. So that something happens, an occurrence happens, so that we don't like, is to swear, for example, or to yell and break things, or to threaten other people, to blame other people, that type of thing. So if an occurrence happens to us that we don't like, we leave those attitudes. We leave those firstly restlessness, why and how, and I could have and I should have, and maybe I did and maybe I didn't, and this and I could have, and what if the traffic light was green when instead of being red, or it came to my mind that I should have not gone and then I went, and those types of things. Because again, that creates doubt in the qudra of Allah azza wa jal. Whatever was to happen to you, if all the humankind and all the jinn got together to prevent it, could they prevent it? and something that you wanted to get, you couldn't get married, whatever it was, if all the humankind and all the jinns came to get you married, could they do it? And that's it. Then why even worry about it? Why become restless? Why become annoyed with the circumstance? Or the last one, at tadajjur, become bored. That's not what the translator uses the word. He uses irritated. Like, I've had enough. I've had enough. I've had enough of this. It's always the same for me. How come it always happens to me? So if we keep that attitude, Allah's going to keep sending us tests. Why? Because He doesn't want us to act that way. He wants us to say, Alhamdulillah. He wants us to say, قَدَّرَ اللَّهُ مَا شَاءَ فَعَلْ. That's what He wants us to say. He wants us to admit to ourselves and to Him that this is the order of Allah. And there's no way, nothing, no how, because it was written 50,000 years before anything was even created on the Lawh al-Mahfuz, on the protected tablet, everything was going to happen. So what, you want Allah to change what He wrote 50,000 years ago on the protected tablet with the qalam, just because you want it, you weren't happy? That's what we're really saying to Allah. Why are you getting irritated for? Why are you getting upset for? Why are you getting... Really, the issue of the essence is, why are you rebelling against Allah? Rebelling against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decree, to be specific. And He says, وَظَاهِرًا بِتَرْكِ الشَّكْوَى إِلَى الْخَلْقِ. So how do we get over it? That's internally how one gets over it. What about externally? Stop whinging. Pretty easy, eh? They should have a sticker like that in Australia. Like bumper stickers, they have them in America, like honk if you do this. That should be our national anthem. Stop whinging, in my view. We're professional whingers. Professional whingers. We like to whinge about everything that happens. That's how we are, unfortunately. Or sooks, isn't that another word? Sook. We like to have a sook all the time. We're professionals at it, وَنَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ تَعَالَى. And it affects us. What are you whinging about? What are you sooking about? Cut it out. Stop complaining. How about the other one? Oh, how are you? Yeah, I forget. I'm not good, but who's listening? Or not complaining, or I can't remember how it goes. Anyway, there's this classic Aussie thing, I can't think of it at the moment, where someone says, how are you, or whatever. He goes, oh, good, what else can I say? Because if I was to whinge, no one would listen, or something like that. It goes along those lines. It's typical, So we've got to stay away, complaining, whinging, because what does it do? What does it do? It increases restlessness. It justifies to us our own position of rejection of Allah's decree. Ash-shakwatu lillah. The pious people, they say, if you want to complain to Allah. It's Allah's decree. If you're not happy with Allah's decree, go complain to Him. Ya Allah, why'd you do this to me? Imagine saying that to Allah, but how about this one? Oh, I got the worst luck. How come so-and-so's got a better luck than me? All these types of things. He says that, but this is not incompatible. So in other words, he's saying that if a person was to describe an illness to a physician, or one started crying at the time of loss, okay, that doesn't mean they're not having patience in that regard. That doesn't mean they're rejecting the decree of Allah, because we're human beings. That's the nature of who we are. It's sunnah. It's a sunnah to go and get medicine. It's a sunnah to be treated about whatever it might be. That's part of it. And so complain to the physician, it's okay. You're allowed to do that. Or complain to the Imam or the Qadi. If you go, this is the husband and wife situation. Husband complains to the Qadi, or the Imam, or the wife goes and complains. If someone's taking your rights and you're complaining to the person who can rectify that, then it's not haram. It's permissible. It's not having sabr. If the husband's not doing the right thing or assaulting you or whatever, don't put up with that. It's unacceptable. Okay? When he says, crying. Sayyidina Rasulullah when his son Ibrahim, he died, he was crying. The Sahaba like, you're right, Ya Rasulullah? Yeah. He said, the heart grieves and the eye weeps. We're human beings, we're not rocks. We know it's the decree of Allah. So we're okay to cry. It's okay to be, so to speak, upset in that sense when an occurrence to feel. It's 3 days if one of your relatives dies, and if you're a woman, it's 4 months and 10 days if your husband dies. 4 months and 10 days, the grieving period. It says, but what does however, it is incompatible with slapping one's cheeks, rending one's clothes, wailing, and such like. In other words, excessive shows of disapproval or excessive shows of sorrow, as the case might be. So it's slapping one's cheeks. Oh, it's an Arab thing. I don't know. Maybe like they say, I pulled out my hair. That's maybe a Western thing. You know, pulling out one's hair and, you know, going off and carrying on and swearing. That could go in that category. Cussing people and using swear words instead of saying Alhamdulillah, Subhanallah, Astaghfirullah, Allahu Akbar, Qadarullah, ma sha'a fa'al, whatever, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, whatever it might be. So by doing that, they're saying that basically rejecting Allah's decree by action. And he says, وَشَقَّ الْجِيُوبِ, to rip one's clothes. I mean, I don't know if that's a thing that happens. You know, yeah, dudes do it. They rip their t-shirts when they're angry. You know, if they've got a t-shirt on with their shirt buttons, you know, like, that's it. I'm angry and whatever. وَالنِّيَاحَةِ, so wailing. If someone dies, it's haram. And that's one of the reasons why the prophetic tradition is that women shouldn't go to the graveyard at the time of the death of a relative, because they're more likely to lose, you know, to become emotional and start wailing. When a person starts wailing on the grave or at the, you know, at the janazah, or the funeral procession of the dead person, the adab starts for the dead person. It's not about the people who are living. The dead person's got rights upon us. So when people start wailing, oh, why did this happen and this and that and whatever. One time I went to a janazah, the wife's going, no, my husband's not dead. And the lady's going, no, he's not dead. What are you talking about, he's not dead? He's dead. I said to her, she's dead. That's it, he's not coming back, ever. Never he's going to come back. Because otherwise you're going to stay like that for how long? Oh, he's just gone to pray, he'll be back soon. No, he won't be back. That's it, Allah's taken. He's not yours anyway. And it's worse for kids. When if a kid dies, it wasn't your kid anyway. You were just looking after him. Or her, as the case might be. How hard as that might seem, and as harsh as that might be, that's the reality. That's the reality. What do we really own in this world? What really belongs to us other than our deeds and the state of our condition of our souls and our bodies? Subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that reality, that helps us to have sabr. And things that are along those lines. What does he say? And such like. So things that are along those lines. Those types of things, people doing those types of things, that shows that when they don't have the commitment to Allah. Commitment being sabr. They're not ready to accept the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They want their own decree. They want a decree that when Allah decrees something, no, I know better. That's really what that person's saying. No, Allah, wait a second. What are you doing, Allah? What are you doing, Ya Qadir? What are you doing, Ya Muqtadir? I want this. And so sometimes that's by one's state internally, and sometimes that's by one's actions externally. Wa na'udhu billahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we need to be careful about these things. We need to be aware of our own failings and misgivings and misguidings when it comes to the way we respond to the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The stronger we are in persevering in that circumstance and showing patience by maintaining the prophetic tradition and the prophetic actions, the closer we'll be to Allah Azza wa Jal. And the closer we'll be to Allah, the happier we'll be, the more content we'll be, the more pleased we'll be. And guess what? The more happier people will be to be around us. Who wants to be around a sook? Who wants to be around someone when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that's doing sins? And even this classic statement, it's as ugly as sin. Sin's ugly. No one wants to be around it. And unfortunately, because of the times we live in where the truth is limited, people don't even care about the truth anymore. It's like a dirty word. Truth? Well, just live your life, do whatever. You know, it's about opinion. Dhann. It's what I think. It's what you think. That's what he thinks. That's what she thinks. That's what they think. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course we're going to fall into that situation then. Of course we're not going to have the fortitude to do the obedience. And we're not going to have the perseverance to stay away from the disobedience. And nor are we going to have the patience to persevere when a calamity befalls, which is going to happen. So we're all going to die. Someone we know is going to die. Our relatives, our mums, our fathers, our brothers, our sisters, our children, everyone's going to die. That's the reality. When? No one knows. No one says they live forever. Some people think they die and they come back back to earth in a different way or a different form, but no one thinks they're not ever going to die. Who's sane anyway? So how are we going to approach these things? How are we going to approach the decree of Allah Azza wa Jalla in that circumstance when it occurs? What is going to be our reaction when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides that something kun fayakun, be and it is? And the more attached we are to those, particularly when it comes to sabr, virtues, for they call it fada'il al-a'mal, the virtues of doing deeds, that helps us to do good deeds. And al-wa'id, because there's naffira, tanfir, which is to scare people. And so to read about the punishment for sins, that gets a person to be conscious when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of what the punishment is for disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the third one, as is mentioned, is that calamity befalls. Be ready to accept the decree of Allah. So if we can start to work on those things in our lives, we can be conscious of how we deal with things that occur, whatever it might be. Locking the keys, that doesn't happen anymore, does it? People locking their keys in the car, because everything's by button. Back in the day, it used to be something, especially when you first started driving, you'd regularly lock your keys in the car. Whatever it might be, like I said, forgetting your password, or your phone gets blocked, or whatever the story is. How are you going to respond to that thing? Be conscious of your response. Don't let your emotions overcome you. Let your consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be the guiding factor in that. No.
On this point, is there anything, any dua we can say which would help us surrender to the qadr of Allah? Anything that's regularly mentioned?
The main thing is istighfar and tawbah. To repent al-inaba ila Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when a person constantly repents to Allah, that's going back to Allah. That's what inaba is, to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And tawbah is to give up one's own, so to speak, knowledge or one's own credibility in that sense, and say, Ya Allah, I've made sins. Ya Allah, forgive me, forgive my sins. Ya Allah, forgive the bad things that I've done. Forgive the negative aspects, the negative things that I've done to myself and what I've led to others. So tawbah is always the thing that keeps that heart soft. Tawbah and istighfar, repentance, always keeps that heart soft. And what the Prophet of Allah said, mahazim al-ladhat, remember that which destroys desires, and is death. So remembering death also gives us the reality of life. Because if we don't remember death, then we think that we're not going to live forever. Oh no, don't worry about it, I'm going to live, I'll be fine. I won't have to worry about nothing, because that's it, I'm not considering death, we can't even mention it. I've been to some places where athletes and things, if someone got sick, they never even went to hospital to visit their friends. They never went to funerals, they never went to the graveyards, because they were so wanting to keep positive away from what they considered to be negativity. They never considered it. So when they did get injured, inevitably, it was too much for them to bear. They couldn't handle it, because they never let that possibility enter their minds. And most of them would quit. Most of them, after getting injured, that's it, that's enough, I'm not going to do this anymore, because they were so devastated, because they never entertained the possibility of it ever happening.